Hear you. All right, so I'd like to welcome everybody who's online. Thank you for joining us via Zoom. This is our first hybrid meeting, so hopefully there won't be any snafus. I'd like to introduce myself, but I know most of you. My name is Cynthia Gubb. Stand back so the camera gets me. And my partner, Seth Bongartz. We're with Gubb and Bongartz. We're consulting on this project. And I'd also like to introduce Bill Drunzik, who is with the Right Track Foundation, kind of a big spark behind this project, and John O'Keefe, who is the town manager, hiding behind his mask there, who is also involved in this project. So we're going to get started with just a few comments from Bill Drunzik, then John O'Keefe, and then we'll launch into the project, tell you all about it, and open up the floor for questions.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. It's with pleasure that I'm here to introduce this project to the broader area of Londonderry and surrounding communities. This project kind of is, let's say, got birth a number of years ago, back as long ago as 2003, when a number of people down in the valley, as I would refer to it, talked about establishing a community center. And that actually, in the process, we formed a nonprofit called the Northshire Community Center, and the idea that it would include Manchester and the areas surrounding that. But that project bubbled for a while and then kind of just went into the back burner and has simmered ever since. And then a number of years later, there was talk about the teen center with the same idea. Again, that bubbled up and then simmered for a while, and so on. And then about 2 years ago, a couple people came together and said, let's see if we can get these projects going again. And on top of that, some of the schools said, we're really hurting for wintertime indoor recreation and practice space. So you put all those ingredients together, and we decided let's look at how we can meet these needs. So myself and John O'Keefe and other members of our community got together and started brainstorming, and out of that brainstorming developed this field house project. And as we started to put it together, we also said, all right, when we put all the needs together, the project started to grow, and we said, how can we make this work? And with John's actually promotion, he said, well, this is more than Manchester can do by itself, or should do by itself. Let's make this an area-wide facility. And thus we have the Northshire Community Field House, and involving all the Manchester and all the surrounding towns. I've been personally involved in developing the process, and I've been fortunate enough that a couple of my businesses have been relatively kind to me, and so over the years we have formed the Northshire the Right Track Foundation, and we decided to help kickstart this project with a donation to help move it forward. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to John and let him explain his perspective of how this project and all the communities can work together.
Let's sit down and take my mask off for this part of it, just real quick. My name's John O'Keefe. I'm the town manager down in Manchester. I've been there since 2007, January 2007, so I'll do that 14 years or so. When we moved here, so right now I have an 18-year-old and a 16-year-old in Burton. So when we moved here, my kids were 1.5 and 3.5 maybe. And I think a lot of my experience comes from that, raising those kids in Manchester. They went to NEMS, they played in Manchester Youth Soccer League, that plays places like West River up here. And so through the years, my kids have been really active in certain things, like basketball, after school basketball. And some of my experience comes from that. A couple things. One, there's a real lack of gym space especially for elementary school kids. I don't know about up here, but in Manchester, most of the gym time it's really advantageous to younger kids gets sucked up by the middle school and high school teams, and then you have kids in grades 1 through 6 that are playing basketball, practicing basketball on weekdays at 6, 7, or 8 o'clock at night, which is probably too late for kids that age. I think the other thing too that's really interesting, having lived here for so long, is my kids, when they would participate in sports when they were younger, in activities, they always viewed actually the mom kids as sort of their adversarial cohort. That they were always looking to beat Londonderry or Westwood or whatever the team was at the time, or Floodbrook. What I find is really interesting is that probably at least somewhere probably around half of my kids' friends are from up on the mountain. So part of the challenge here, whether it's the senior network or the kids, is creating a facility that actually matches the rest of our institutions like Burton. Most of the kids up here in the mountain go to Burton, or Floodbrook is now part of the same school district as MEMS with inside the BRSU. So I guess my goal, not here to make a hard sell, but just selling the idea that that I'd like to see a system where kids from up on the mountain and kids from the valley can go to the same facility after school and participate in the same activities. I think the way to do that is to get a larger participation outside of just Manchester.
Okay.
So I was careful not to steal any of your thunder this
That's all
time.
right. That's all right.
So
Okay,
so I'll
so
hand it back to you. Do you?
yes,
Okay, you've got everything. I think there was a comment there, something about the video. If you go to chat,
sorry.
it's like somebody left a message.
Video
Keeps cutting out, or is it? Patty says you're fine.
So we could just put everyone else there. So, we're going to walk you through this presentation, and if you have a question, I can't really, we only have a small window on the screen to see if you have a question. So maybe just save them for the end, then we'll get out of this presentation and we'll answer your questions. So this is a photorealistic rendering of the.
She's trying to get in.
She's showing. She's in.
Okay.
This is a photorealistic rendering of the field house. So quite an amazing building. And let me just go ahead and record. So the whole idea behind the Northshire Community Field House and our planning over the last 2 years has really been to come up with what would drive this place. And we feel that it will be a facility that will improve the lives of the people who live here. And that will happen through fitness and recreation, social interaction, which we know is really important. We all live in a very rural area and sometimes it's hard to get together. And then also as a secondary benefit, add some economic vitality to our region. So there's a couple focus areas. The first one is the facility will serve a multi-town footprint. As John alluded to, it's not just a building for Manchester. The idea was to build something that would encompass a multi-town footprint because we all come back and forth between our communities many times a week, and it's something that would allow us to do more than just a simple type of field house. We also felt like promoting that this building will promote health, fitness, and social interaction across town lines. And as John said, you know, a lot of our kids go back and forth between Burton and the mountain.
Hey, can I interrupt? What's on my screen is town contributions for 30 years. That's all I'm seeing.
Hold on. This happens with our, all right, hang on.
Hold on. Thank you for
Since we don't have
speaking
any
up.
young people here, I'll fix it myself. Yes. So, oh, that's the one that,
Okay. Slide two.
how's that?
Does that work?
Yes, that's great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank
All
you. Sorry about that.
That happens at town hall more often than our side.
All right. So the idea is to create all these three things across all the town lines that we have. And the town lines are basically the footprint of what we have for the Taconic and Green RSU. And the last focus area is really providing diverse programming for all age groups. So this includes after-school programs, weekend activities for kids and adults, activities during vacation weeks so that there's something constructive for kids to do on the mountain, off the mountain, and summer programming for youth. But then there'll also be leagues for, say, basketball, volleyball, pickleball.
What you do?
Is someone trying to, oh, admit, yeah. Just keep it on.
It's not on this screen.
What do you?
Alright, hold on, we gotta pause this.
You might have to stop sharing.
No. Hold on. Where's the- Sure. Yeah. You go so well, so.
So much for our hyper.
Yeah.
Well, this is good. It's a good test.
Should go through technical training at first.
Scroll down again. Over here. This one. Slide two.
Can folks see that now?
Yep, I hope. Can everyone see that?
Okay.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay,
Good.
thank you.
All right, so again, thank you for being patient with our lack of technological skill here, but this is the first time we've done this hybrid model. So getting back to the diverse programming, we figured there could be basketball leagues for old people, young people, as we call them, easers, clubs. You can have a rock climbing club for young kids, older kids, young adults, and lots of other activities. But ultimately, the whole idea behind the fitness, the field house, is to build lifetime habits of healthy living. And in addition to what we just went over, we feel that there are secondary benefits that would enhance the vitality of the area. What are you doing, John?
Just trying to put some background noise.
Okay.
Instantly.
We feel like this particular project would bring some new economic activity to the region, but through a sports-oriented lens. We feel that when people are choosing to relocate to this area, that it might enhance their decision to say, yes, I want to live in an area that has access to this facility. We also know that there's many for help wanted ads in the newspapers, in windows. All of our local businesses are looking to find people to come and work at their businesses. So this could be a recruitment asset for local businesses. It could serve as an additional asset to our local schools. So we could hold regional tournaments at the field house, or a school might want to bring their kids down for the rock climbing tower, or use the basketball court, or host a volleyball tournament or something like that. And last but not least, it's also an attraction for our lodging properties. So lodging properties in the area will be able to buy passes for the field house so that their guests can access the facility. So again, this is just another photo from the beginning. This is the main entrance. So if you all are familiar at all with the rec center down in Manchester, you drive in, come around the big.
Okay, sorry, we're not seeing any photo.
All right, what do you see now?
The slides aren't moving, we're on focus areas.
Okay.
Okay, there's the photo and the site plan.
All right.
Okay,
So,
okay, so
okay,
see
good.
the photo?
Yes, we're looking at the photo now.
Okay, that's weird, okay.
And what is site plan?
Go right to the site. Good.
So there's the site plan, you can see that?
Now we can see the site plan.
Okay. So you can see that it's tucked into the corner. The first corner as you come around into the entrance and then come into the rec center parking area. And it's right next to the existing pool house and the park house. There's plenty of parking. There'll be additional parking that will be added. There'll be parking for field house users right along the road. There'll be handicap parking, lots of it there, and then also bus drop-off parking. So if a team is coming in to play, they can be dropped off, they can go into the field house, and the buses can go and park somewhere else. So the field house is about 67,000 square feet, and that's hard to imagine, but a couple weeks ago we had it staked out at the field, at the rec center, so it's big. It will have solar panels on top of the roofs. There's lots of square footage on top of that building that can accommodate many solar panels. It will be built to the energy, it will be a very energy efficient building, which is built to the standards specified by the Vermont Commercial Building Energy Standards. And as we said, it will be centrally located at the rec center, convenient parking, and the last three bullet points are very important. There's already access to sewer and water. There's no cost for the land, and there's minimal infrastructure needed. So this is an item that helps save money on this particular project. So this is the field house interior first level, and
Did folks see the floor plan?
did everyone see the floor plan?
Yes,
Yes.
we can see it.
Okay.
Can you see my cursor?
If he moves the cursor around, can you see it?
Don't see a cursor.
Okay.
Okay. Well, the main.
Try it, John, might show up.
No, I was trying it.
So
Yeah,
pointer
it helps me out, John.
Okay, I'll keep doing it.
helps the people here. So the main floor space where the courts are located, there are 3 courts, and the idea behind the design is that this is a very flexible building. The three courts can accommodate pickleball, volleyball, basketball, indoor soccer, and on the outside of the 3 courts, to the right is the climbing tower, and to the left is a full-time pickleball court. So these courts can be set up in many different ways. They're separated by netting that can come down, so your ball's not going to bounce from the volleyball court over to the pickleball court. So that offers a lot of flexibility on these in the space. Then surrounding the courts is a 200-meter track, which allows any school with a indoor track team to come down and practice, or you can have a senior with a walker walking around the track, or you can have a parent with a young toddler on a trike riding around the track. So it's really meant for a lot of different purposes. Relative to the indoor track team, there are also the other events that go along with indoor track, such as shot put, long jump, pole vault, and high jump. No javelin, because we didn't want to injure anybody during practices if someone's walking around the court. Then below the interior of the field house, you'll see kind of a blue section. That's a fitness room. It will be filled with cardiovascular equipment like bikes, rowing machines, treadmills, climbing machines, different types of cardio machines, along with weight machines and of some free weights. Not a lot of free weights, so this is really something that you could walk into as an average person, do your cardio warm-up, do a circuit around the weight machines, a little bit of weight workout, and then there's also a multi-purpose room, which is about 1,500 square feet. Can you see it on there?
Yeah, but
It's right there. Just trying to get somebody, so.
no. Okay. Oh,
There's a bird.
okay. Can people still see the slide?
It's the wrong slide though. That's the second one. Oops. Oops.
Can people still see that slide?
This is the green slide, the green floor.
Yep.
Okay. So, I forgot to mention that on the right side of the green section, there's a rock climbing tower, which is 45 feet high, which is a state-of-the-art design. It will be designed by a Vermont company that specializes in this type of thing. So, at the bottom, you'll see a multi-purpose room, number 1. That's approximately 1,500 square feet and could be used for any number of activities such as arts and crafts. Could be a space for silver sneakers to do a workout. Could be a chair yoga and stretching. Could offer childcare, so the idea is maybe to offer once in the morning or 3 times a week in the morning a space for young families to come. The toddler can go into the multi-purpose room and be entertained for an hour while mom or dad does their workout. And then it can also just be used for meeting space for sports meetings or other organizations. So then there's the main lobby, and we'll show you some renderings shortly, which will give you an idea of the space inside. But really nice layout for the whole first floor.
Did you mention that this is 3,000 square feet, the two-size room?
I did not.
So that's like a pretty large single-family house.
Yeah, so the blue area is 3,000 square feet in case you missed it.
This area here, that's.
Yeah. So the second floor is right above the first floor. There are 2 locker rooms which would be used for team sports. So if EBA was playing Mill River, the teams could come in here, change, and then either go out to the soccer fields and play, or lacrosse, or whatever it is that's scheduled for that day. There's also a couple of multi-purpose rooms. Those are to the left and cantilevered out over the track. It's kind of hard because usually I can point to it, and I can't do that with this presentation. There's an observation deck which is also cantilevered out over the track, and that's open, and you'll see that in a minute from some of the photo renderings that have been done. But if you're a parent and your child is practicing on the floor, a basketball game, or playing volleyball, you can watch, do some work on your laptop, and then when you're done, walk down and pick them up and then head out. There's also a multi-purpose room on this floor, which is a little bit smaller, but could be used for community group meetings, bridge groups, homework club, meditation space, wellness classes. There's also a conference room, an office for the executive director, and then more lobby space. So this is a really cool photorealistic rendering. What they've done is just taken a slice right through the middle of the building. And as you're looking at it, to the far left, you can see the rock climbing tower, which again is 45 feet tall, and it's multi-surface, so it's not a flat wall, it's three-dimensional, so there's lots of different routes on it. You can see the observation deck, which is open to the three-court area, and the three courts are set up from left to right: basketball, volleyball, pickleball, and then the stationary, or the one that's set all the time as pickleball, is to the far right. And then you can see the track on the outside is kind of pink, and it goes all the way around the inside of the building. The two multi-purpose rooms, you can see have glass in front of them, but they also can be open, the shades can be open to look out over the court space. Oops. Not good. Okay. One of the really nice things about the interior, you'll notice that there are a lot of windows. So this allows a lot of natural light to come in from all different angles. So north, south, east, and west. There's lots of natural light coming in, which is great here in Vermont because you know how dark it gets early in the season and throughout the winter. It's nice to have a lot of natural light flowing into the building. And the other thing to think about is that you could build a field house that's just a box, but this has a lot of interesting spaces, a lot of useful spaces, a lot of natural light, because it's going to be there for a long time, and we want it to look dramatic, we want it to look inviting, and I think the architect has achieved that with this design. This is what it'd be like to walk into the lobby on a sunny day. So the whole place will be flooded with light. This meeting space out here could be used by, if you have a little walking club, you could go walk around the track for 45 minutes to an hour, go into the weight room and do some weight workout, and then meet afterwards for a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, and a muffin in the lobby space and catch up with each other. Go ahead. This is another shot just of the lobby, but again, you can see how light-filled it is. This is if you were standing on the observation deck looking down over the court space. So again, from left to right, you have the pickleball court, 3 pickleball courts set up, volleyball and basketball, and then the track running around the outside edge. But you can just see how light and inviting it is.
And sometimes it would be all basketball, or
Right.
nothing up, and all indoor soccer across
Right.
all three.
So at certain times of the year, you could just lay down turf and have like indoor lacrosse practice or soccer practice, things like that. This is just a long view from the pickleball court down to the other end to where the rock climbing tower is. And one more shot of the basketball end. But again, these courts are interchangeable, so they can be any or all of the ones that we have talked about. So again, this is just reiterating what would be inside the field house. The only thing we didn't mention was the batting cages for baseball practice. So those would come down from the ceiling, and they could be used by our local school kids for indoor baseball practice to warm up for spring training.
Come on.
So after the building was designed with lots of different input, we spent some time talking about the different activities and programs that could be offered at this facility. So as you can see, the list is very long, and I'm sure we could add a lot more to this. So anything from beginning gymnastics to toddler tumbling, to wellness classes, Zumba, yoga, futsal, floor hockey, shuffleboard, pickleball. There's just so many different things that you could do here. And there's also a lot of different user groups that could also use this space. I know we did a presentation, and there was a representative from the collaborative there, and her eyes lit up when she saw what can happen here. And it can be a great space for some of the activities that the collaborative offers to keep our kids safe and entertained. So could be used for bridge groups, coaching clinics. You could contract with personal trainers to come in and help you with your workout. Be used for elementary school activities, high school athletics, indoor track teams, senior groups, silver sneakers, Special Olympics. And it could be an additional choice for just programs. So if kids didn't want to ski, they could maybe come down and do rock climbing instead.
You just ask it.
It just sounds like they're gonna put in pickleball court. Move the pickleball 1,000 times.
Hey, your microphone's on.
We can hear you. All right, so
Mute yourself.
So, yeah, okay. So this is where I sit and I usually switch. So here's how the operation of the facility would work. The town of Manchester would technically own the field house. It's on the property owned by the town of Manchester, correct. It has the advantage of no taxes if it's owned by a municipality. It has the advantage of the town being able to roll it into its insurance policy and have town employees take care of parts of it. It has a lot of things that kind of, payroll can be done by the town of Manchester. It all kind of makes sense. It saves a lot of effort. It's also confusing since it's on, otherwise confusing because it's on land owned by Manchester. But for the other towns that come into this and help with the construction of it, they're called participating towns. Participating towns would get a seat on a nonprofit board. We haven't decided whether it's one or two, but anyway, they all get the same thing, no matter what size of the town. Everybody gets the same number of reps on an oversight board that would work directly with the executive director to work on, set the budget, look ahead to future capital needs, help administer the scholarship fund, those kinds of things, so that it would give the towns that come in a real influence on what happens within the confines of the field house. So the whole notion here is a self-sustaining operating budget, so that if towns help with the construction, as we'll talk about in a minute with this, then that's the last time they get asked for money, because the facility runs on its own and covered through a combination of membership fees, core usage fees, facility rentals, tournament fees, equipment rentals, etc. So energy efficient design reduces operating costs, and this is a key thing for towns that are thinking about joining this, is that to the extent that the budget is designed to actually have an excess every year to go into a reserve fund. And the point is that reserve fund stays within the confines of this building. It can't be like taken by the town of Manchester and used somewhere else. Whatever excess there is stays within the confines of the facility and is used for maintenance, future capital needs, etc., and to help to get on scholarships as needed. And just to, because we have such confidence in this budget, after spending all the time we spent on it, the Right Track Foundation, on top of covering all the soft costs that it has done to date and will continue to do, and the $3 million that this Right Track Foundation is putting in to jumpstart this project, it will guarantee, the foundation will guarantee a break-even budget for the first 5 years of operation, just to give time for any adjustments that have to be made and to make sure that we have the ship totally ready. And this is just to give you a sense. It's not, there's a whole lot of pages underneath of each of these for what's involved and where the calculations come from. But if you look at the bottom line, it shows a net income of $908,000. But one place that I want to dwell on for a second is if you look under the membership fees by type. The premise of this facility, one of the things that Bill at the Right Track Foundation has said from the start, is that one of the only reasons he's involved in this is that it's accessible to everybody. This isn't for a certain group of people. This is accessible to everybody who lives within any of the participating towns. And so therefore, a membership rate, which would normally be, if this were a for-profit, actually even a typical nonprofit, having to depend solely on this for its income. Market rate could be $500 or $600 for an individual, and then up from there. This is $125 for a resident of a participating town, or $10 a month, and $250 for a family. And just because we wanted to make sure that no matter what, this is accessible to kids, for resident students, resident meaning resident of any of the participating towns, elementary school kids are, this isn't shown, but it's $20. It's on the next slide. Oh, that's a few slides in. All right, I'll leave that then. I'll come to that in a minute. But anyway, this just gives you a sense of the $908,000 in income. And then if you go to the next page, if you look at the 740, almost at the bottom, not quite at the bottom, those are the actual costs of operation, leaving a first level net of $167,000. And then this budget is designed to always be able to put $100,000 into a capital reserve fund, which theoretically leaves a net income of that $67,000 each year. But I guess in some ways the real point is to compare the 908 to the 740, and that's but a ton of work is going into this budget, and it's been tested and retested and tested again, and that's we're pretty confident in this numbers. And that's so glad.
No, wait a minute, go back there. Shared expenses. Up at the top, executive director.
Oh yeah, okay, good. I'm good. Okay, thank you. So staffing, and I guess a few things to say about this. Number one, this building is really efficient to operate. It doesn't require a ton of people to run it on a day-to-day basis. What we've built into the budget is an executive director, a programming director, an operations director. There'll be some front desk staff for checking people in, and then on a regular basis, maintenance staff of one and a half FTEs. But within that number, if you think about this building sitting at the rec center, the idea is that the executive director will also be the executive director for the entire rec park. Therefore, the salary can be allocated. In this case, we've got the cost of the executive director being 60% allocated to the field house, and 40% will be paid directly by the town of Manchester. So what we get is an executive director for this facility at a substantially reduced cost from what would otherwise cost if we were to do it just on our own. And the same thing is true of the programming director and the operations director, which are shared 50-50. So the field house gets what it needs for effectively half the cost for those people.
Plus the seasons.
The season it also works out well because the facility will be used more heavily in the winter, and they will direct more of their time to that. In the summer, they can shift more of their time to the rest of the rec center, and that's another reason that it works aside from sharing the expenses. But thanks for doing that. So here's the cost of the building. $13.25 million. By the way, we had a detailed cost analysis done by the same firm that built the new building at Burton on their estimate, and then built it on time and on budget. So that's a good number, the 13.25. And the money would come to get this built. Again, the Right Track Foundation is putting in the first $3 million. The idea would be for the town of Manchester, on top of the contribution of the land, all the infrastructure, and everything else, to put in $3 million in cash, if you will. This is, of course, dependent on the approval process. But if that were to happen, we'd have $6 million toward the cost of construction. And then the idea is for the surrounding towns, in order to become participating towns, so that their residents are treated as residents. One-time contribution from the Mountain and Valley towns. We'll talk about that more in a minute. And then topped off with some business contributions. And then in the end, some private donors. So it's worth noting that out of this whole thing, and we'll see this as we talk about it, it's half a philanthropic project, because the first $3 million is philanthropic, and then it'll get closed out with philanthropic dollars. So on top of the fact that all these towns are sharing costs by all putting in a little to get this built, there's a philanthropic element at the beginning and at the end. to make it all come together. So I've talked about this a little bit already, but so participating towns are considered partners. It's in perpetuity. If you're in, you're in. No annual contribution, representative of a nonprofit board. And here's the rates again. The resident membership at $125 a year for a single, $10 a month. But this is where I was going to say that just because we wanted to make sure that no matter what, kids have this access to this facility. For elementary school kids, $20 a year, and for high school kids, $50 a year. We figure they can take a little bit of responsibility toward the membership. But so virtually free for kids, and very, very far below market rate for residents of participating towns. Otherwise, towns that are not residents of towns that are not participating towns will pay market rate, whatever that is. Frankly, as much as we can get, whatever the market will bear, because well, that's why they'll pay market rate. That really for a facility like this is much higher. I think we'll the 375 we're showing. That's just to give an example. And in addition to residents of participating towns getting the very low entry rates, they also get priority for court usage or wall usage or anything else. You get priority for reservation times. So here's the chart, the one that was stuck up on the screen earlier. Now it's here by design, showing how, giving a sense of how it works. And just because everybody's going to go there because you can't help yourself if you live in Londonderry, as that's from every town. The way this works, let me explain it first, is that Manchester's putting in $3 million. And then it is to look at, for the other town, all the surrounding towns, their contribution is based on a combination of grand list, population, and then a discount for miles from town center to town center of like Londonderry to Manchester. So Londonderry would get a significant discount. So what it translates to for Londonderry is, if you look at the column that says average grand listed population, it would show Londonderry's contribution being $1,185,000. But because of the mileage discount of 3 cents a mile, town center to town center, you actually get a 47% discount off that, from that, and it translates then to Londonderry would be asked to put in a contribution of $628,000 toward this. And if Londonderry were to take out a 30-year bond, it would cost the people of Londonderry a total of $29,000, basically $29,000 a year. And for cost per $100,000 of property value, we call it $6.98. So what begins to emerge from this is the fact that every town that's involved in this is contributing a share toward a kind of a facility that no town could build on its own. But if we do it together, our kids and our seniors and everybody in between can have access to a $13 million facility.
So John Ogden is here from Granville. So you just
You're from Granville. Okay. Well, yeah. Okay.
But yeah, you can
Okay.
actually less than 5,000. You
So-
do the math.
Yeah. Well, I should have. Yeah. Okay. What other road is even less? Yeah. Okay. Mangrove gets an even bigger mileage discount, obviously. So, good. So here, just to sort of wrap up, this is kind of like as we talk about trying to make this area, and let's just talk about it as kind of the urban orbit. We can make this area, we think, the crown jewel of Vermont. In many ways, we believe it is already. But just to roll it out, play it out, we've got the best schools in Vermont. We're convenient to major metropolitan areas. We again, maybe our bias coming in a little bit, but this is the most beautiful part of Vermont, and the mountains, the valleys, etc., and it is. There are tons of cultural opportunities over here, the Western Theater, for instance, multi-seasonal recreation opportunities, access to healthcare, and we have what is already a fitness-based population. And so you add this to this, and we can really make this area the crown jewel of Vermont. We all know, right now it's a little, it feels a little maybe strange to say this, but we actually have a problem with not enough people. We have a demographic problem. We had 20 years ago, we had 120,000 school kids in the Vermont system. Now we have 80. And if we need to, in order to keep our school population where they need to be, and keep that flow of people coming into Vermont, kids hopefully we can eventually get to stay here, we need to work on this problem on our own. And here we are, we've got all the assets, nobody's going to do this for us. This is another way for us to pull this area together and make it especially spectacular. Once completed, it's worth noting that there will be, nobody else in Vermont will have what we have with this facility. It'll be like Middlebury College has something similar, but it's not open to the public. This will be a facility, 200-meter regulation high school competition track, for instance, and like use of that track by anybody in our towns who wants to use it. Nobody else will have anything like this. I don't need to read it all through. You can see where it is. I think I'll just leave it there. I think that's Celeste. So yeah, okay. This is where this is a one-time opportunity. We have with the Right Track Foundation a significant lead gift committed. The Right Track Foundation has covered all of the soft costs to get this off the ground. It's the kind of thing that is very, very hard to do without that kind of initial support. And they're continuing to cover all the soft costs. There's no land acquisition. The infrastructure is frankly almost totally in place already. Bond financing is as good as it's ever going to get at 2.1% for 30 years. And this project has been teed up by the Right Track Foundation. If we want to do it, this is the question for all the towns, is do we want to do this? If we do, we have the pieces in place, and that's going to be it.
So maybe just talk real quick about the request for March.
Oh yeah, okay. So what we're doing is we're in March at the town meetings. We're asking select boards. We're asking select boards to put on their warnings for March an article that simply says, "Shall the town of Londonderry or Langgrove indicate interest in pursuing this?" Which is basically saying to select board, yes, pursue this with the town of Manchester and with the Right Track Foundation. We're interested in making this happen. And we'll take those towns that say yes to that. We want to the select boards, yes, we want to pursue this. We'll work with those towns and then work on the operating agreement and the municipal agreement, and then bring it to a vote later in the year in special town meetings for those towns that have made the initial indication that they're interested in doing this. So I think that's a good point to stop and ask for questions, comments and questions.
So I left a question in chat. Is that how we're supposed to do it?
Well, that's one way. That will work. I think that John reads it.
I think it's Ann who's asking. Is that right, Ann? Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I see it pop up. She says, I believe the park is covered by GNAT-TV permit. When do you plan to apply to revise that permit to cover this project?
Almost immediately. We have, that's a great question, by the way. We are at the point of mechanical design for the building, which for those of you who know anything about construction means that's pretty far along. And the PERC has been, our architect has been chopping at the bit to get the application in. So it is like, we could theoretically, I think, get an application in within the next month or two.
Oh, the town permits required too.
The town permits are required.
We're not exempt from our own rules.
But right away, we're very close to being able to put in for the application. You know, just, Joe, if there's,
Mitch and Patty have questions, they have their hands up.
okay.
His preference?
No.
Mitch?
Okay. Just curious, did you look at a pool, or that's not cost effective, adds too much to the maintenance?
That is, you've answered the question. We did look at a pool, and the reality is that to build a pool and operate it is just, but this thing can be self-sustaining. A pool can't be anywhere near self-sustaining. It would require constant infusion of public money or charges of $1,000 a year for a person for a membership. And that, of course, defeats the whole purpose of this, which is to make it affordable for everybody. So, yeah, that's the problem. It's just not feasible without constant infusion of public money.
Mitch, this is John O'Keefe too. I'm kind of off screen, I think. In 2012, when we built the park house, we had a big committee. Actually, Bill was on it, and we took road trips to all the different pools in the state. White River Junction has a really large pool, and that was an interesting one. They had 2 donations of $10 million each to build it. I think their membership is about $1,300 a year.
It's 13 months.
And Springfield is the other one, actually. They also built their pool with very little, I don't think with any debt. They actually used their prison mitigation money. So they got the prison and the pool at the same time. And they're about $1,000 a year. We did do, again, we did another deep dive. I don't want to use that as a pun, but I just did, I guess. This time around too. And it's really hard to make a pool work just because of the staffing and the energy costs that are involved in it. Although we've talked a lot, and possibly out of this, if this model works and we have this board up and running, I think there's a chance to have another discussion about a pool. And a pool comes in a lot of different ways too. It could be everything from a current pool that you swim against the current to the full-blown pool. There's a lot of things that we'd have to consider, like, interestingly, swimming is not a sport that is endorsed by the Vermont Principals Association, believe it or not. It's not a Vermont high school sport, which is one of the places that we probably get a lot of swimmers.
So I think just in the end, going back to it, you get 10 times the bang for the buck with a building like this than you do building a pool. And to the extent that this is supposed to be social and having everybody from across town lines and all age groups able to have a place to go and participate for a very low cost, you can't possibly replicate that.
It's tough to do it affordable.
Yeah. And just by way of example also, Manchester runs its pool in the summer for 10 weeks, loses $50,000 for those 10 weeks. It costs, on top of the
2
money,
for 1, basically.
2 for 1. So they take in $50,000 in pool memberships and day passes, etc., but it costs $100,000 to run it. And that's a place without a building over it, with all the equipment and everything that would come. So pools are very tough sell. But John's point is worth noting that if this were to happen, the towns were to get used to working with each other, and see how this goes. That's where I think the possibility down the road of a pool might come 10 or 15 years down the road.
There's one other thing that a lot of people ask is the current pool that we have, how come we can't cover it? We have looked into that. The walls of the pool and the deck are not insulated. So if you put a bubble over it, you'd have all the cold transmit right through the concrete, right into the pool structure. Okay. Patty Eisenhower, have her hand up?
Hey, I have a question about the rental revenue assumptions. If you could dig into that a little further, it seemed like the expectations are kind of hefty for that, and where would it come from? And then I have a follow-up question on the grand list and voting.
I don't have that. I guess we have to get that slide back up. I don't have that. We don't have those numbers in front of us.
Well, I think it's just a general.
Yeah, it was more of a general, and I think it was roughly 800,000 or 900,000 possibly in revenue.
Yes.
Well, you have the memberships that individuals buy.
Oh, that goes into that? Okay.
That goes into that. So you have that. both resident and non-resident. And then you have, for example, Burton. It's not, we've decided not to have any partners in this other than other municipalities. So in the past, sometimes we've signed deals with, like, for example, Burton. Burton, we expect is going to be a really large user because they have six basketball teams in one gym. So they have basketball practice at 6 a.m. It's a pretty regular event. So they'll be paying the going rate to use that facility, for example.
This is figure between $40 and $60 an hour per court.
So so just by way of example, we envision that between 3 and 6, most likely, most evenings during the winter, schools will use all 3 courts for basketball. Other times, it'll be after that they'll be available for adult pickleball or adult basketball leagues or other things. But that's all revenue.
Okay, so like evening pickup games, there wouldn't be a rental fee for?
Well, yeah, there would be. You do rent the courts for a bill set between $40 and $60, but it's also the case that on occasion there would be just free court time.
Like Patty, we were talking about, this is John O'Keefe off camera. We've been talking a lot about having like high school pick up different like basketball, dodgeball. I think you can still play that with the modified squishy balls. Rock climbing, things like that, where we have like a Friday night thing. A lot of the usage is going to be dictated by evenings and that kind of stuff. Like Seth was saying, generally 3 to 6 is going to be most likely youth basketball, high school basketball. I do see, for example, having a lot of the Floodbrook. For example, in this particular facility on a Saturday, we could actually run most of the basketball leagues in this area out of the youth ones and get all that done and actually have multiple games in the same day. But in the evenings, like Friday evening, you're going to have mostly high school kids in there. Most of the rest of us have plans on Friday nights.
And yeah, programs for that sometimes. There are a lot of programs for kids on weekends, especially.
Yep.
So anyway, and then you were asking about the grand list and population and all that.
I believe in Londonderry, our grand list is represented about half come from second homeowners, and I don't know what the case is for other communities, but mountain towns.
Yep.
So I'm wondering if you guys have thought about the vote process, because I can't help but think that our second homeowners aren't super active in voting, but maybe I'm wrong.
They are not. They
The
are not allowed to.
They're not allowed to vote.
Oh, sorry.
But
they will be considered residents,
Yes,
though,
that's
from, like, anybody in Manchester right now, it's anybody who owns property in Manchester, anybody who lives there for more than 6 months and 1 day, and anybody who owns a business in Manchester. So our thought would be to extend that to all the other towns, use the same definition. So if you own a business in Londonderry, you'd be considered a resident. If you're a second homeowner, you'd be considered a resident. But yeah, the voting thing is something I think that all of us struggle with as far as.
But the point you've raised is and John sort of talked about, is that if second homeowners are treated as if they're residents for the purpose of being able to use this as residents.
I have another question about
Yeah,
the
Kelly
law.
has
So if you have towns that opt to not participate in this coming town meeting and an advisory vote, you then have to refigure your budget a little bit, I assume. So do those changes get factored into what all of the other towns are going to have to contribute, or are you raising more private capital?
More private capital.
It's the more private capital.
Yeah.
We know that not every town is going to come in. I mean, the having this bill is not dependent on every town coming in. It's dependent on some coming in, and hope, but also with the recognition that even under any circumstances, we're going to have to close it out with private fundraising.
But the idea is to give every town an opportunity to participate if they so choose.
Right, but so these numbers are, I don't want to say set in stone, of course, but
Yes.
won't be affected by other towns dropping
That's right. That's
out
right.
and not participating.
That's right.
Because the Manchester, we just kind of
Yes,
developed the
yes,
Manchester
right.
number and said, okay, what kind
Yeah.
of number in Manchester might be palatable? If it was a round number, it's nothing scientific about it, and then everything kind of slid down from there. The only other option that I really don't want to do because it has big ramifications is you could see from the thing behind you, you could take out a port and just say, oh, just take it out and build it smaller. The savings aren't as big as you would expect, like on a square footage perspective. But you could do that too.
Kelly's real question was just to make sure that
Yeah.
if Londonderry says yes, their number stays the same no matter
Yes,
what, and it
that-
stays the same.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then an additional question about timing. You had said that you would expect that towns would hold a special town meeting vote for a bond vote rather than waiting until the next year's town meeting. So do you have an idea of the timing that you're looking at? Because you can ask towns to have bond vote at a special town
Yeah.
meeting, and they can
They can
to
decline.
tell you that, you
Yeah.
know, no.
We've considered this. The easy option is just to do it at the November election,
Sure, you can say that's the easy option.
right? I mean, kind of, because you've already got an Australian. I mean, nothing's easy when it comes to voting. I know that. Listen, I've got a town clerk too. That would be, I guess you'd have to have a separate ballot though.
You would.
Yeah, a
And the
separate
November
warrant.
general election, the state is going to be mailing ballots to every voter, so that doesn't necessarily equate to easy.
True.
That's a good
Just-
point.
Yeah, we've tackled that same thing with the school. If the school doesn't mail them, if the school mails them, we mail them because otherwise people say, "Oh, I already got it in the mail. I voted."
Right.
That's an
That's
interesting point.
a
Didn't think about that.
logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
Well, it's something
But
we will.
let's talk about our desired timetable.
Yes, the
Yes,
desired
that's my
timetable is to
question.
do it as early, in the spring or early summer, in order to be able to get started that fall and have it ready that much more quickly. It's just a matter of every time you wait too long, you're in that lose a whole other year.
It affects the cycle of construction if we postpone
Right.
it too long.
But
Right.
we understand that.
Yeah, I for one.
And that towns may have plans of their own, which may factor into the timing of when they might want to put
Yeah.
something to their
True.
voters.
But we would.
And so I guess one of my other wonderings is what are the implications for the project if towns, for their own reasons, have other timelines separate from your timelines?
I think at some point we have to sort of set a deadline, and we haven't had that discussion in that language even internally yet. But you're raising legitimate
We could think of
things
it
we
right
have
now.
to think through.
Well, the general discussion is that we want all decisions to be made by everybody at the same time, so that we don't have overlapping votes affecting people's thinking down the road, and to affect the whole process too, because
So,
Probably never get votes.
if bond votes were to fail, would those deficits be made up by more private capital as well?
correct,
Yes.
we just have to seek more private donations.
I have a couple questions here. Do you want me to read them or?
Yeah.
I think just Kelly, from my perspective, we would need an intergovernmental agreement guaranteeing
Oh, yeah.
the rights of all the towns. Obviously, it's not a handshake kind of thing.
No, I
So,
We have a
assumed,
draft.
yes.
so once we figure out what towns might be in from the advisory vote, if somebody votes 70% no, 30% yes, I think we just say okay. For towns that vote yes, it's non-binding, but then we'd say okay, now let's have a discussion about what are the towns looking for as far as the agreement.
Well, the bond vote is ultimately what's binding.
Yes. Okay, well, we want to make sure that there is also a binding agreement for all the towns that opt in. And one of the
Protect
premises,
towns, actually.
Yes.
like sort of at the constitutional level, I call it, even though it's not, is that anybody who's from a town that's participating is created equal and treated equally.
I think to be clear, what John was saying though, that if somebody decides during the advisory vote process that they're not interested because the majority votes no, we're not interested in proceeding, then we aren't going to, at least at this point, not include them in any further deliberations
Yeah,
going
no,
down the road.
So here's a couple questions. It says, this is from Jane McClugler. She says, how are you going to prioritize the different sports for reservations? That's a good question.
It's a good question. That'll be, we don't know the answer to that. The executive director, working with the rep from each town, with the oversight group, will have to sort that out. Hopefully, with 3 courts, we'll probably prioritize with younger kids, depending on what the sport is. But during the winter, middle of the basketball season, it's likely to be basketball. And then a little bit later, indoor soccer. We don't know that. That'll have to get sorted out.
It's a big space.
But it's a big space.
Yeah, it's a big space.
It's regional for a reason.
And it doesn't just break down. So, for example, Jane,
Jane's a pickleball player. So.
yeah, and I was going to actually give an example that you could play on 2 of the courts. It's not necessarily 1, 2, and 3, or all the courts combined. 2 of the courts will actually be able to house this sport called futsal, which is soccer with a smaller ball that doesn't bounce as much. And then on the 3rd court, you could be doing pickleball at the same time on the 3 courts. Or you could do actually, one thing we've talked about is having a pickleball tournament, putting down temporary lines, and being able to have 10 pickleball courts all at the same time.
But there'll always be one dedicated pickleball court.
And there's always
No
one
matter
pickle. Yeah. And she says, what's going to happen to the existing outdoor basketball pickleball courts? And the short answer is that they're going to get moved southwest. And we're talking to a person that you might know, Jim Evans, about possibly setting up more pickleball courts on the tennis courts as well. The basketball court that's going to get moved would be 1 basketball court, 2 pickleball, but then you could get another 6 pickleball courts on the tennis ball courts. But they will get moved.
Questions?
Did I answer your questions, Jane? And then,
Thank you.
oh, no problem. And then this is actually a good question too, from Bob and Kim, because I can, how would the acoustics work in the spaces with multiple courts and activities going on at once? So that really comes down to, I can answer this one.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Bob and Kim, there's netting around all of the different courts, and then there's curtains that drop between each court to separate out balls from going from one court to the next. But we've gone one step further, which is the bottom of each netted net that drops down, the bottom 8 to 10 feet will actually be a solid surface like a vinyl that will act as a sound retardant. And also, so when you're playing basketball in one court and pickleball in the other court, you won't see the busyness of the different balls and things like that, and also whistles. And I also think that it's some, what's that? Yeah, the flooring does absorb. The flooring is a rubberized surface, and then I think that we're also going to have to look at sound panels.
Yeah, up in between the girders.
But that's a good question. I can understand what you're saying, which is that the sound in there, if you don't do it right, could be maddening. With 100 basketballs all hitting the floor at the same time.
It's a pickleball, so you gotta watch out for it.
Any other questions?
I had a few extra fee questions. My name's Jennifer. Are the existing pool fees going to be included with this as a membership fee for the mountain towns and any of the other towns? Because I believe right now there's a non-residence fee and a residence fee for the existing outdoor pool.
Yeah, that does not get rolled into this proposal. This proposal is about the confines of the 4 walls of this building.
Okay.
The town,
I mean, I represent the town, which is different than the Fieldhouse project. This is John O'Keefe. I put it on the table, but saw it kind of as a side discussion. So if a town went out into the Fieldhouse and they said, okay, we want to talk about the pool as well, we're open to talking about that, of course.
and
We don't know what that means yet, but yeah, I'd be completely open to it. I should say that for what we charge even non-residents, even though the non-resident, I think the day pass for an adult is $10, there's still a certain subsidy that's going on there, believe it or not, at $10. The real cost is about $15. But if we charge $15 a day, we'd have no non-residents there, is basically our logic for underwriting a certain portion of the non-resident fees for that.
And you mentioned there'd be the membership fees, and then there are rental fees. So if you were a member, you're not only paying for that the membership fee, but then you'd also be paying a rental fee on top of that to use the facility?
For some things, yes, but for the membership fee alone, you get access to the track, which we think is going to be one of the things that gets used the most, and the fitness room. The courts themselves do have rental fees.
Unless it's part of the program.
What was that?
Unless it's part of the
program. But we're trying to balance, this thing has to pencil, it has to operate in the black. And we have to get to having it operate in the black some way. So the idea is very, very low rates for membership, so you can get in the door. But if you've got 10 people playing basketball and it's $50, it's pretty inexpensive.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand
Yes.
what fees are.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that's okay.
And then the other thing you were mentioning, like all the schools. Now, I know Floodbrook's basketball program, there's a lot of kids, and I know MEMS and all the other schools. But I'm thinking, okay, you have BBA who has 6 teams. Floodbrook has one for every grade, which I'm sure MEMS does, and all the other surrounding schools, because we all play each other.
Yep.
And I know we've tried to, they work really hard at scheduling all the kids in there and trying to get the younger kids in at reasonable times, like you mentioned.
Yep.
I can see that dominating the courts really quickly with any one of the different sports that we have. Mm-hmm. And I know I watched a little bit of your that was on GNAT before, and there was a mention of the members would get priority over certain things, and there wouldn't be as many like tournaments or whatnot, but tournaments can really bring in revenue for the towns in general, for multiple facets.
Yep.
We all know that. So I'm just curious, there's a lot of planning, I guess, involved in all of that.
And it's going to have to be balanced. School usage will have to be balanced against the needs of residents who want to use it. I think it's probably fair to say that the younger the kids, like say basketball, they're going to get preference for the very early slots. You get the youngest kids in and out, from 3 to, I think it's like from 3 to 4 or whatever it is, and then the next age group after that, and the next age group after that. So, if you have. It's probably going to be busy for those, that'll be a couple months a year, especially when the kids are playing basketball. That'll be definitely times.
Yeah, and I can see you overlapping because, as most of us parents know, that the sports overlap quite a bit. Yeah. Basketball will run mostly all year. Baseball now runs most of the year. Soccer can run all year long with indoor and outdoor. So I can see this being used. I mean, it's a great idea. It's a great facility. It looks like you guys put a lot of work into it.
And I think, Jennifer, you're...
Yeah, I agree.
Every time I question the size of the building, I think I kind of go back to what you were saying, that, it's not going to be it's not going to be trouble finding people to use the facility. It's going to be actually scheduling it. As a parent of older kids who raise kids that were younger, I really feel like having, I'm sure it's the same at Floodbrook, having basketball practice at 7 p.m. The kid gets home at 8:30, has to eat dinner, they're all wound up, they're not going to bed till 10 o'clock at night. I think that's just too late for that kid. So it would be my goal to get those kids in earlier, including from the mountain towns. And then the tournament piece, we've sort of understated what we think the revenue would be related to tournaments, just because I think it's easy to sort of understate that. My thought on tournaments is, of course, there's a benefit to local families too, because you don't have to travel to Burlington or Albany for basketball or soccer, whatever it is. But the other thing too is that when you are bringing in teams from outside, you're charging them a premium, and that's helping drive down the cost of membership too. It is a little bit of a burden, but when you're getting that sort of premium for short periods of time, like maybe Thanksgiving break or things like that, that's the way that we can keep your membership low.
Yeah, I agree. I'm out of Floodrick now. I have 2 teenagers at BBA, so I'm up and down the mountain a lot.
Yep, yeah.
You know, the other, just to also think about this is, you know, we've used the analogy in the past, you may have seen it in one of the other sessions that you watched on GNAT, but of the days when everybody used to come down from all over to play volleyball, you know, all 20-year-olds, everybody in their 20s, playing volleyball at Murray's. And it was people coming from all the towns and spending time together in a way that we can get isolated from each other. And this is just another opportunity for both for kids, but then also for adults to cross town lines and all come together in one place and spend time.
This is actually a good time to talk about too, Jennifer. Jane has a question about hours of operation. And right now we're looking at probably 7 o'clock in the morning to open up. If we got there at 7 o'clock and there were constantly people there, we think about opening earlier, but 7 seems at least like a good start. And then on the evening side, I'm going to pick on John Ogden here, who I used to play soccer against a couple of years ago in indoor. If John and I want to play indoor soccer, he's probably not going to get a 5 o'clock slot. You're probably going to get the 9 o'clock slot, John, or the 8 o'clock. And that's kind of how even hockey rinks run the same way. That you tend to get your not your older users, but your sort of middle of the pack, your 40 and 50-year-olds that want to play like volleyball or basketball or pick up soccer. Those groups would go later. So, you know, we could stay open. I think right now we're saying 9 most nights, not Sundays.
9, yeah, 7. And who knows on Sundays? Who knows
Yeah,
what
maybe.
we'll get.
But if somebody came to us and said, "Oh, I want to do pick up adult co-ed soccer at 9 o'clock at night from 9 to 10," we'll stay open. And I think that we've played that late before at the rink.
Later.
Yeah, later, yeah.
And the idea, though, is just to be open 7 days a week with pretty good hours, about 14 hours a day. Basically.
So I just answered one of Jane's questions. She also says, rental fee on top of membership fee.
Talk about that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So,
I have a fee question.
Kelly.
If you have students using the facility, do they need to pay the membership fee in order to get in the door? Or if they're on a sports team, do they get to use the facility because they're on a sports team?
Yes. It's the latter. If they're on a team, probably that membership would be waived. If it's a team, like a Burnburn team or something coming to use it, then we're not going to be checking IDs.
They said the schools just pay the court fee and then
Yes.
anybody related to that school team can play.
Yes. Yeah. So, John.
I assume you'll be relying on the towns for determining residency.
Yes, we'll have to work out a system for that. We do it now, right? In Manchester.
Yeah, we have an ordinance. We'll have to figure it out. Or do you have a particular concern, like
No, actually,
non-residents?
I'm
or-
not. It's not a concern. It's
Oh,
just clarification. And I don't think it's going to be a difficult task.
Yeah,
but
it's probably going to be filling out a form
And
with
maybe
address
having, maybe having a list from the town.
yeah, but
Shouldn't be as hard as like sending a kid to Burnburn, the amount of paperwork that's involved in that.
So I thought you said earlier that if a town opts in to participate, then all of its property owners are considered residents for the purposes of membership fees.
Yes.
So then what
How would
what
we
distinction
know
do you
that?
need to make
Oh, that's
between a resident and
Well,
a
I'm just
second
saying
homeowner?
that somebody's going to apply to the rec center for membership.
Right.
It's going to have to go to the town clerk, I would assume, so that the town clerk can say, yes,
Some
this
sort of
person is
To
in fact
verify that
Right,
they're,
yeah.
that they're a
this person
property
is in
owner.
fact a resident of the town,
Right.
and then it would have to go back.
Property.
Like I
Or
said, it's not a,
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, we
Right.
probably, I mean, the town clerks would be the best one to say.
right.
I mean,
You
you
just
could
show
probably
me the
tell me.
grand list every year.
Yes,
That would be
Just
fine.
like
Yeah.
Excel spreadsheets, you get all of them.
okay.
That's-
Yeah,
Because that's the phone call that we don't
although
need
you
to
could
be
have
on a
renters,
regular basis.
you could have renters
That's
too.
That's true.
Yeah, but we, I mean, It's pretty easy.
I guess I'm just saying, please don't start calling the town
Oh, yeah, every day saying,
to
oh,
verify.
yes.
This is-
No, we'd have to have a quarterly system.
I guess the point of bringing it up is just to make it clear, because
Yeah.
there's the clerk right next to me, and
Yeah.
there is gonna be work, there is gonna be more work for the clerk involved.
And we do have now, we used to have an old management system that was terrible.
Thank you, John.
It just didn't work well. We went to this thing called Civic Rec, and there's an easy membership way, so we could actually provide lists to the town clerks,
Yeah.
saying, here's who we got as residents. Because one of the forms we'd have is clicking off the town, Londonderry, for example, and then we could provide Kelly a list of saying, here's everyone from that says they
Or
live
for
in
that
Londonderry.
matter, you could provide the rep on the board with the list, who would
Exactly.
then, who would then.
Yeah.
So just to
Better.
close this out,
Look out for you, Crystal.
one
That's a good
question we
point.
get when we close out is, what can we do to help? Assuming you think this is a good idea, what you could do to help us is A, talk to your friends, B, show up at your select board meeting on the night that this comes up and suggest that, yes, we would like to put this on the ballot, and we'd like to pursue this, just to send that signal. And so Cindy always mentions, the one that
Yes,
always
so
mentions,
if you want us to do a presentation for a group of friends or, a group of enthusiasts that you have, please let us know and we'll be happy to do that.
you can do it at your house if you want to, invite friends over, or we can do it in a space like this for 10 people, whatever you want to do. If you do have friends you want to show this to, let us know we're happy to do it.
I have one more thing, I'm sure it's on your minds. When you do get to that rights of like your Bill of Rights for each of the towns who decide to opt in, I'm sure this question's gonna come up at some point. Manchester's obviously putting the bulk of it in. You mentioned that, you'd have the board with everyone would be equally represented, but we all know that the way our towns are set up for, when we had the school board starting, it was by the population. If one section is giving you 3 million, the other's only giving you not even half of that. I see people saying, hey, why don't we get more representation on the board or in that manner?
Nobody's pushed back on that so far. We just, if we do it the other way, then Manchester dominates. And we just didn't want to do that. We wanted it to.
No, I don't disagree with you. I think that's great because, everyone's going to get a better fair shake on how to use it. I just envision that that's something that might come up when we get to that point.
And I think, Jennifer, this is John O'Keefe again, I think that recreation is sort of a group exercise as well, but it's partly individual. When any person that shows up that's a citizen of the field house shows up at the front desk, we're not going to look at and say, oh, Manchester person or Londonderry person or Dorset person. They'll get the same answer or the same membership fee or the same port usage fee. I think the one thing that maybe is a little tricky is making sure that we provide good access to, like, for example, the Floodbrook basketball programs. That's where it kind of gets a little tricky, and I think part of that will be that I think at some point this thing might run individual programs like at Floodbrook and Dorset and Manchester and other areas, but would be the overall coordinators, so that would help those towns, those teams get access to the building.
But Floodbrook, just to make sure this is totally clear, for Floodbrook School, their teams would have absolutely the same opportunity to get in the courts as any town, from any other school from anywhere else.
Yeah.
There's zero preference for anything. That's just going to have to go. All get sorted out by age, distance, all of those things. So just have to get sorted out.
One thing that's interesting is every single basketball program is run by a different entity. The Floodbrook program is run by a not-for-profit. The Manchester program is run by a town government agency, and other ones are run by their schools. So the way that they're even run is all over the board.
Okay. It's 7 o'clock. Thank you all for coming.